started recording?
Yep.
What is the one thing
Every time!
It's the running joke.
She does this every time, doesn't she?
She even specifically, I asked, let me know when you start recording so we can kind of get a timing. You were like, yeah. And then nothing.
No.
Oh my goodness, Aaron.
Well. I'm good.
I was like, I'm just going to sit here and look expectantly at Alan until...
just another Tuesday.
It's not Tuesday.
But it could be.
Yesterday was Tuesday, but today is Tuesday too.
Oh, no. That was time loops. That was the last episode.
That was last episode.
Or 2 episodes ago. Whatever it was. Welcome back to the Fake List, everybody.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. In case you missed it, there's a third voice in the room.
There is?
Wow! Guess what, friends? We're here. We're queer.
Uh-huh.
And we have a friend.
We have a friend. Proof that we have friends that are not just each other.
Who are you people?
We kidnapped a person.
Yeah, and forced them to read fan fiction for us.
Well, let's be real. It's like that TikTok where they're like, if you got kidnapped, what would you rant about for 3 days that would make your captors release you? And that is this situation. Because we were like, hey, friend, pick a tag. And then you picked a tag. That is very exciting.
Yes, let's be real. I'm the one that forced you guys to read
Yes.
this particular fan fiction.
Everyone please welcome our dearest and loveliest friend, the runner of the Tumblr, the true queen of Fic List, and truly our first fan. Like the person who we were like, we're going to do this thing. And she was like, fucking do it. Miss Caitlin.
Yes!
Woo!
Woo!
Hey.
Caitlin, would you like to introduce yourself?
I'm Caitlin. And like Aaron said, I run the Tumblr and for Fic List, not just the Tumblr.
You run all of Tumblr.
The queen of all Tumblr.
I was going to say God I wish, but actually no.
No.
Because
That sounds stressful.
it also is a multi-billion-dollar loss of money.
Yeah, I thought for a second you were going to say multi-million-dollar corporation, and then I was going to go, not anymore.
And it wasn't even before then.
Nope. Also, if you were a Tumblr staff, I feel like you just get hate constantly.
I was going to say, yeah, you would have had a really rough, what was it, December of 2018, 2017?
Like decade.
Oh God, you're right.
Well, Caitlin is here.
Yes.
Caitlin, you are our first Fic List episode guest,
Hell yeah.
of course. Because as soon as we were like, we're going to do guests, you were like, so me.
Right.
I'm the first one, right?
Yeah. And I was like, duh.
And at the time, it was like, and the only one. But
Right. Very much at the time, we were like, well, I think it's just going to be you. And now you're here. And this means that also, this is the first time that someone who is not Aaron or Alan has picked a tag about which to speak.
So true.
We did not choose it because we were like, Caitlin gets to pick. And Caitlin, my dearest friend, person I met at work.
Where did we work together?
We don't talk about it. We don't give specifics.
But
but it
what
was
type of workplace?
It was a religious institute.
a religious.
A religious institute.
It was in fact a large church of the Christian variety. And what tag did you pick, bud?
BDSM.
Something a little light for the palate.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something easy reading. Like you can just chill out on the beach,
Or
have
like
your phone out.
Easy on a Sunday morning with some coffee.
Especially at church.
Yeah.
At church.
Definitely read it at church.
Yeah.
Jesus says yes. With consent. I already regret all of our decisions.
No.
It's fine.
How dare you?
It's fine. So here's a question that we usually ask each other.
Mm-hmm.
Why'd you pick this tag? And what about this tag appeals to you, Caitlin?
Oh boy. I forgot about this part.
You have to defend your choices.
I don't have to defend anything.
That's true. You could just be like, I felt like it. And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah, it's
Valid
something.
enough.
Well, it's because of the particular fic that I recommended. And I recommended this a long time ago, back when you first started accepting recommendations.
True. Because for
Don't
a while,
call us
you
out.
were our only recommender, too.
Yes. And this is a fic that is very important to me for many, many reasons.
Mm-hmm.
It is one of the few fics that I reread every year. not at any particular
Christmas?
time. On Jesus' birthday. But this particular fic that I recommended, the first time I read it, it's actually one of the last works in progress that I read as it was being updated. Because Aaron and I have had the discussion that I don't read those anymore. I search by complete only.
You are a sensible person, Caitlin.
Self-love.
Meanwhile, I'm like, all the work in progress.
Yes. I'm just
Heartbreak every day.
Exactly.
Ugh.
So this was one of the last ones where I was doing that. And I still remember that feeling of like when a new chapter came. But me and my friend Rosanna were really into Suits. And this particular fic we were both obsessed with. Whenever a chapter would update, we would text each other like, new chapter, ah! And then immediately rush to read it and then send each other our reactions. And that was one of the last few times that I had that experience in a particular fandom with a fandom friend. And just like those memories are very near and dear to my heart. But also BDSM can be so many different things for so many different people, especially when it comes to kink. Kink is defined, like there are particular definitions of it, but everyone has their own definition of like kink and kinky sex. Because like some people might think that like, you know, handcuffs and blindfolds and spanking, it's like, oh, that's super kinky. Oh my God, like I've never done that. And then you talk to someone else and it's just like, that's like a Tuesday night for me. Like that's what I do when I'm bored. But they're into much harder stuff. And that's always been fascinating to me since when I first started reading BDSM fan fiction, and that's how I don't want to say got into it, because I'm not in the scene. I do not represent the BDSM community. I am just a fan.
I think it's so funny that the three of us are going to have to talk about this.
I was going to say, yeah. This is
We're about to have like a friend revelation. You're welcome. And y'all are going to be able to like listen to it in real time.
Yeah.
Whew.
Which is like, for me and Aaron, that's kind of okay because we've known each other longer. This is the second time Alan and I have met in person.
I forgot about that. And for a second, I thought you were going to be like, I've known Aaron longer than Aaron has known Alan, and that's not true.
That's not true.
But
no.
Aaron was my supervisor, as we all remember. And now here we are talking about BDSM
in my living room.
You're welcome, guys. I make magical things happen.
Can I say I love having Caitlin on this show?
Yes.
I instantly gained a confidant, a supporter,
An ally.
An ally. That's the word I was looking for.
All those things are great.
But I think also on the vein of that, we should also say that since none of us are like in the scene,
Correct.
we are just going to give our impressions and like our thoughts as it is now from the outside looking in. So nothing should be taken with like any type of
And I think the blanket disclaimer also goes that you can learn about kink and BDSM from fan fiction, but you should not learn, or you should learn about it, but not learn your etiquette from fan fiction.
Right.
Yes, don't take any type of sex advice from fan fiction.
Correct. But
That's
especially not this kind of sex.
No. Do your research. If it's something that, if reading one of these fanfics or hearing about one of these fanfics like inspires something and you, then that's great, but do more research into it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of ways that the kink community protects you, protects your partner, protects your partners, and sort of maintains safe, sane, consensual, safe, sane, and consensual encounters for all. And those are really, really important to know going into anything like this, and you are not really going to learn that from fanfiction, friends.
No.
So please do your research before getting involved in anything like this.
Exactly. And there's a lot of good resources out there, especially nowadays. I can't remember when it was, but Aaron and I did have a conversation that there are a lot of asexual writers that write the kinkiest fanfic out there.
Yeah, and I also think that it's interesting that kink does not always have to be inherently sexual, because there's a lot of it that is about control and power and deciding to concede control or to like allocate roles to people that have nothing to do with like any sort of intercourse. And that can be fascinating to explore especially in fan fiction, but just sort of in general, where it's like, yeah, like we all think about it as just this like sexual thing, like specifically a sex act, but it's not that in exclusivity, which I think is fascinating. Alan, you've been awful quiet, and I want to hear about
I?
Yeah, you have. And I want to hear about your feelings about BDSM, the tag.
Ooh, it's hot in here. We have to turn off the AC.
We did have to turn off the AC.
Well, I feel like we learned a lot about Alan in the first season of this fanfic, as far as like I didn't realize it until we started doing this show that I had this thing for like control and stuff in like the fanfics I read. So let's say that this week was interesting. It was
It worked for you?
It did work for me, and I am like, I always knew that there was a part of me that really wants to like explore that side of like kink, and I just haven't. So that's where I've been. But it was eye opening. I thought I was like, wow, maybe I am ready to start exploring some of that.
Exciting.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Thanks,
I
Caitlin.
take full credit. Thank you very much.
Changing lives over here.
For Alan's sexual renaissance.
That's what I'm here for.
I love that term. Here we go. 2021, the year of Alan's sexual renaissance.
That is amazing. I love that for you.
Thank you.
So good.
I'm so happy.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah.
I'll let you know, listeners, too, you know.
We'll keep you updated.
I'm very open about
really.
most things.
Yeah. That's very funny.
This is amazing.
But I think we should talk about some fics now, because we have 3 to get through.
Yeah,
oh boy.
We do have a lot of fics to get through. Who have we never figured out the logistics of this? Now that there's 3 of us.
So I had an idea that someone summarizes a fic that they did not recommend.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I volunteer to do errands because I already kind of have it done in my head.
Oh, absolutely.
Incredible.
You know what? Love that for me.
All right.
Yes.
Caitlin, since
Also, it's the first one I read, so all of my notes are on
Yeah,
top.
can we also talk about the fact that Caitlin has notes? She told me this on the way over, and I was like, wow, you're so well prepared. Where are Aaron and I's notes?
yeah, I stopped doing notes. Oops.
You were good for 2 episodes.
I was. Caitlin texted me and was like, I took notes. And I was like, I didn't. And she was like, what the fuck? She was like, I sent you the most important fic of my entire life and you didn't write anything down. And I was like, no.
I've never been so
I want dibs on that one.
disappointed.
Yeah. And she
Aaron.
was like, I said, the only thing I'm consistent about is being inconsistent.
That
The most
checks out.
consistent thing about me is that I am inconsistent. So no, I did not take notes. Caitlin, if you would like to start,
Sure.
then I think we can start there, and then
I called dibs on Caitlin's.
great, and then that means I get Alan's, which is fantastic for me. Love that. Also BDSM, I read a lot of BDSM fic.
Do you really?
I do. I read a ton of it. However, it's hilarious because I'm like, I have no interest in doing this in real life, like none.
Yeah.
But I read so much of it because it's so much about communication and control, and that's the kind of stuff that I always go for in
That
any
makes
fic.
sense.
So
Let me pull up your fic so I can read the summary.
we're gonna learn a lot about each other.
Oh,
I'm
boy.
so excited.
Like-
I have many opinions.
Yes, Caitlin, yes! It begins,
Oh,
listeners,
man.
it begins.
There can't be 2 of us.
You knew this.
I did know this.
We
to be
are
fair.
literally 1 day apart and a couple of years for birthdays.
That's true. We have 2 very strong Capricorns in the room right now.
Yes.
I don't know what any of that means, but
And one very happy to be here, Scorpio.
which
Scorpio?
is hilarious. There's no She-Ra fic in this episode, friends.
No.
Spoiler alert. I'm so sorry.
Ooh.
You know what fic there is? Does anyone want to take a guess?
Yes.
Let's reset the counter.
I hate you.
We are at 0 days for Aaron wrecking a Quelliot fan fiction.
You know what? I stand by it.
We'll see about that.
Oh! Spicy.
It begins.
I'm gonna be so offended.
You are.
Oh,
my
no,
God.
Caitlin's gonna have bad opinions about my.
Maybe.
Oh.
No spoilers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, the fan fiction that Aaron recommended is a Quelliot fanfic from the Magicians.
Obviously.
It's on Archive of Our Own, and it's called My Mouth, Your Lips, Your Hands, My Hips by Butterfly.
Great author name, by the way. Congrats on getting that.
A very easy, and it's like, oh, it's spelled butterfly.
Yeah, it's not
they're not forced to
It's
put
not
in weird
but 3 or
letters.
fly.
But 3 or fly.
Oh no. Okay.
And for the summary, Elliot and Margot separately meet Quentin Coldwater on his first day and each call dibs. When they realize they're both interested in the same person, they declare a friendly rivalry over who can seduce him first. Good summary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is the fic.
Well, that's the first.
It's the first like chunk of it.
It's the first chapter or two.
Yeah, it's
not even. It's the first half of the first chapter.
Maybe. Listen.
It's the first like first half, and then the other half is just sex.
You mean it's the first half of this 118,610 word fic?
of which there are 4 chapters.
Oh man.
Just saying.
All right, so I have to admit to all of our friends over the internet that I didn't really think about that when I put that in the doc. I was like, this is the one I want. Well, I originally, hi Emmy, I almost sent another portrait of Emmy fic, and then I was like, I can't do this. As much as I love Emmy's stuff, and as much as it would be great to talk about even more of Emmy's incredible kinky fanfiction, I was like, I have to send something different. So, and this one is like a slightly spicier fic, and I was like, okay, cool. So I dropped it in the thing, and then I got a text from Caitlin. I was like, Alan's gonna die. And I was like, what? And she was like, we sent him 2 novels. And he was like, and then he sent a whole bunch of crying emojis.
I was very overwhelmed.
It was really upsetting.
Yeah.
So I apologize because frankly I didn't even think about it.
It's okay.
I was like, it's 4 chapters, it's fine. No.
Yeah, and the fic that I sent is 98,000 words. Divided into 29 chapters, though, I will say that.
I sent a sensible 13,000.
Yes. It was lovely, Alan. Good job.
It's like it's a lime water.
And I did feel Alan's pain because I reread all of them because I needed to do my annual reread and might as well do it for work fun. Hobby work. Whatever this is. It's not work because we're not paid, but...
You could say that again.
Yeah, 100%.
So, like it said in the summary, Elliot and Margot both meet Quentin separately. And this is a AU of season 1 of The Magicians, right?
Mm-hmm.
So some stuff is different, like all the sex.
Yep.
And
there's no beast. So the whole sort of like central conflict of the series it basically takes all of that out and is like, what if they just went to magic school?
What if this was
and then developed this relationship?
What if this was just like Harry Potter grad school with a lot of fucking sex? Anyways, enough about that.
Not the assignment?
Enough about that. So they do meet Quentin separately, and they call dibs. Eventually, they did realize that they're both after the same guy and become aggressively competitive to bang Q. So much that he thinks that they hate each other.
Yep.
And he confronts them about this, and they eventually admit to him what's going on and that they're competing with each other to bang him first. And he is rightfully pissed off about this and storms away. Elliot goes after him and apologizes to him. And it's like, I'm sorry, we don't have to have sex. I'll still be your friend, even if we don't fuck. And Quentin says, well, what if we do? Would you still be my friend after we fucked? And he's like, yes, of course.
And so they fuck.
Yes.
And Q is like, prove it. And all the readers
literally.
Yes.
And Elliot asks Quentin about his sexual history, especially pertaining to anal and anal penetration. And Quentin does talk about a past girlfriend who she would peg him.
Mm-hmm.
But he would not enjoy it. This ex-girlfriend enjoyed that he wouldn't get hard while she was pegging him. And Elliot and the readers, we all clock this immediately as abuse. Elliot doesn't talk about it because he doesn't want to ruin the mood, but he does mentally note what not to do for Quentin. So make sure he's enjoying himself, go slow, take his time, check in with him. And they do that. They have a great time. Happy sex has happened. And like,
everyone wins.
At least to me, it felt like not even 10 minutes after they both finished.
Oh, yeah.
Q
Easily.
gets up and he's like, okay, I'm going to go fuck Margot now.
Yep.
And Elliot's like, what? Excuse me? He's like, yeah, well.
Elliot and Alan. I was like, what? Excuse me, where are you going?
Yeah, and then Q's like, yeah, I'm going to go see if she still wants to fuck me, even though she lost the competition. Bye. And so,
okay. It didn't happen exactly like it's close. But he basically is like, I need to go have the same conversation I just had with you with Margot.
Yeah, that's
There
what
you
I said.
No. There's a slight difference. Slight difference.
We're trying to do this shorter, Erin.
This is great. I am enjoying myself so
Continue.
much.
So he goes and he finds Margot. Margot's in her bedroom and she's pissed. She refuses to apologize to Quentin because she doesn't feel like she has anything to apologize for. Quentin's pissed. And then they have angry sex that's not sexy, in my opinion. And I mean that in, like, it read to me that was on purpose because we just got the backstory for Quentin's abusive relationship. And what happens with Margot and Quentin, it's not the same, like literal the same stuff, but Margot is demeaning towards Quentin and rough. And I wrote in my notes that she was a huge bitch. Like,
she was. Oh,
I get that is her character, but like, wow.
Yeah, and I think it's also, I think part of it is that it's almost jarring that it comes right after the really like great and intimate sex that Elliot and Q have, because from that point you kind of already know that Elliot's invested more than Margot, but that's because Margot is aromantic, so it's like a difference, and it is jarring for it to happen right afterwards.
So they have, it's not abusive because that's not
very rough.
Yeah, it's very rough.
And Margot does not adequately like take the time to ask the same questions that Elliot does.
Yeah. And like I get obviously in the situation, like Margot doesn't ask the question and she doesn't know that Quentin has triggers, and Quentin doesn't even know that he has triggers.
Right.
And so I get it, and at least it felt to me after finishing the fic that it felt like that was the intention of the author, is to have that comparison. So I was like, okay, afterwards I got it. Especially with Margot's character later on as she develops. So that happens. And there's like some passage of time, I think, and they're just friends. They're like chill. They live up to their promise to Quentin. They're his friends. They're mentoring him in magic. And where's my notes? Oh yeah, here we go. So they're friends now. Q's learning about magic, and then he gets the news that his dad has cancer.
Oh, that's
and it's very sad. And him and his friends try to find a spell to cure cancer, and everyone else is like, no,
baby.
Literally everyone has been trying to solve that. You're not going to be able to do it in a day.
Yeah.
They do not. And Quentin gets obviously a little bit more depressed. Time passes, and there's some party for like Margot, I think. There's like a sport event. So at this party, because Margot like won the sports or whatever.
She won the sports ball. Congratulations.
Yes. They're like chilling in one of their bedrooms, Quentin, Elliot, and Margot. And Margot suggests that they have a threesome. And so they have a threesome.
Yep. That is an accurate summation of what happened.
And everyone enjoys themselves. It's great. And they basically decide to become friends with benefits. And there's more threesomes. There's a lot of threesomes.
I was going to say, I think exclusively from now on, it's almost all threesomes.
Yes.
The benefits are spanking. A slight daddy kink on Elliot's part.
Yeah.
Slight.
Please.
A mama kink on Margot's part.
There it is.
And just a lot of banging sex.
Yep.
Yeah. Sounds about right.
No, that's not what I want. I'm going over my notes. So they have threesomes. They're all having a great time. And more time passes, and Quentin eventually has to go to Antarctica with all the other first years.
Yep.
Because they have to do special magic training trial stuff.
Yep.
And while Quentin's in Antarctica, he kind of realizes that he wants to date Margot and Elliot. Like, actually be a polyamorous couple. And I can't remember if he wants to be exclusive, but he wants them to go on dates and just be a, like, polyamorous threesome.
Yeah, he wants like the strings.
Yes. And what else does he do? Oh, yeah, but he kind of he downward spirals and has a lot of doubts and questions himself. He thinks, well, like, what? Well,
yeah, specifically, so there's a whole dynamic, too, where, so he's been sleeping with Elliot and Margot, and the physical kids' cottage, he's been going over a lot, and they know him, but they all assume that he's dating Margot and just really good friends with Elliot because of this whole, like, it's implied that it's like misogynistic or like homophobic type of point of view, where it's just like you just assume that the male and female presenting people are together.
They assume that he's straight. which is incorrect.
Yes. And Margot hates this, obviously, because she's aromantic. She's like, absolutely not. So she's very loudly telling people, no, we're just like fucking. And she, in one of those moods, trying to set that record straight, she tells Alice that she should go after Quentin and like, oh, you can bang him if you want, you're hot and all this stuff. And in Margot's mind, it's nothing. She's just like trying to like get more people to understand that it's nothing serious. But Alice waits until she's at Breakville South with Quentin to approach him and say, oh, well, they told me, or that Margot told me to like pursue you or to try to sleep with you, but I want like more. And that sends Quentin spiraling, because he's like, oh, they're trying to pawn me off on someone else now that they have gotten what they want, and they've gotten their fill. They're just kind of try to shift me off to someone else. And so that gets him spiraling to thinking that they don't want anything to do with him.
Correct, Alan. Thank you.
Yes.
I remembered it, but in my mental summary, I was just like, it doesn't matter. I'm just not going to mention it.
There was something about Alice.
Yeah.
Alice is there and whatever. While that's happening, Margot and Elliot, they're back at the school and they're trying to figure out their like thesis project, their third year project.
Yep. Thesis.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, that thing. And Elliot's also like fully coming to terms that he is in love with Quentin and he's not dealing with it well. So yeah, Elliot has caught feelings and can't handle it. Margot asks if he's ever going to tell Quentin the truth, both about his feelings and also his past with his abusive parents, and that he's actually from Indiana. And
killed someone with his magic.
Yeah, that happened.
That did happen.
I think that's the biggest thing, that he's like, I used my magic. When he discovered his magic, it was when he pushed a bully in front of a bus, and he's traumatized by that, because he's like, I can't use magic. Like, he thinks that he's predisposed to using magic for like violence, for bad things.
Yes.
I love that you've never seen the show and you just spouted that off so casually.
I think that if someone asked me about the magicians, I'd be able to give them a play-by-play of Quentin and Elliot, and that's about it.
You absolutely could.
Well, yeah, you've read enough fanfic that you damn well know.
I know them so well.
And Margot asks, are you going to tell him? And they've also been planning this like magical sex orgy in Ibiza.
Encanto el Culto.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. I just keep trying to remember the song.
Ibiza.
And they've been planning this for the three of them to go during spring break when Quentin gets back from Antarctica. And Elliot says, I'll tell him after, because they want to just have a fun, chill orgy time.
Yeah, you don't want to bring feelings into the orgy. That's a bad etiquette, I think.
And like, if the feelings are already there, if their feelings are there, already there, and acknowledged, great. Yeah. But if it's gonna result in some awkwardness, you don't want that at the magical.
Yeah, you don't want to spring that on someone as you're about, like, you're stripping. You're like, hey, I love you. Now I'm gonna go suck some dick. See you later.
I'm gonna suck someone else's dick after just declaring my love for you. Bye.
That's not the energy.
No. That's what we're saying, Aaron. We're saying the same thing.
Yes. And so that's what Elliot has decided. And him and Margot have a more detailed discussion about his past relationship with his ex-girlfriend, because Elliot gave her like the cliff notes of it, of just like, don't do this stuff to Quentin while we're having sex, because
he gave her the red flags.
Yeah, and just so that she knows not to do that without violating Quentin's privacy. And they have a more detailed discussion, and Margot immediately realizes that's abusive and she should not have done that to you. But she also, in her own mind, realizes how bad their first time went. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't say that to Quentin in that moment, because she just wants him to feel comfortable talking about his past. And Elliot comes in at some point, and they talk to Q about more that they say like, your ex was kind of a predator, and did you even really want her to peg you? And just sort of like trying to,
and that was a really interesting thing too, because so Margot and Quentin are having this discussion, and Quentin the whole time is very much of the mindset that, oh, abuse didn't happen because like I I didn't want her to leave me. Like, I was doing it to keep her with me. You know, she was my girlfriend. And he even goes up, like, and so he's explaining the story to Margot, and Margot clocks the behavior and says, oh, so let me guess, she just started showing up at your place randomly looking for Julia, and then just asked you to over one day. And Quentin is like, how do you know that? And Margot says, yeah, she targeted you. She was coming after you because you're worth something to her. And that's something that Quentin hasn't been able to come to terms with, because he talks a lot about how when she left for London, he sobbed and was like, please take me with you. More so because he didn't want to lose someone that he thought, like, it's that whole, like, we accept the love we think we deserve type thing, where Quentin was like, this is the best I'm going to get, and I don't want to lose that even if it sucks. And
he just wants to be, like, good enough for someone to stick around for him.
Yeah, and it's just so heartbreaking. And it really informs a lot about Q's, like, self-esteem issues, and makes the relationship that he has with Margot and Elliot even, like, more gratifying, I think, as a reader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there was another quote that I really liked, and it's Elliot to Q, being you is good enough.
Yeah.
And I was just like, yes! Thank you!
There it is!
Well, it also speaks volumes to why Q was so adamant in their first interactions of being like, will you still be my friend after this?
Yes.
Because what he's really getting at is, will I still be valuable to you outside of a sexual context?
Right.
And Elliot and Margot both are like, absolutely. And they mean it. And that is what sets this relationship apart for him from everything else he's ever experienced.
Right.
Yeah, because he, other than the abusive ex, he only gave blowjobs to some guy in high school, and I think that's it.
And it was all, and also importantly, it was all, the relationship and the blowjobs were always, like, secret. Like, they didn't want to be seen with him, and so it's very important to Quentin when, like, Margot and Elliot don't disown him.
Right. Yes, and the abuser was even specifically like, do not tell anyone about this. Yes. They have that conversation. Where's my notes? Oh yeah, so
I think that's gonna be the title. Where's my notes?
It doesn't help that I wrote these really fast too, so like I can't read half my handwriting.
This is why we don't write notes, Caitlin. We just go with what our gut
We've
tells
evolved
us.
past that part of the process.
It's also this tiny little anyways, so they have that conversation, and then they go to Ibiza, and they have a really, really great time. Orgies are had. Sex is had. It's great. And eventually, I think it was towards the end, like the last day or the second to last day, that Elliot fucking finally tells Quentin that he wants to take him on a date and be his boyfriend, basically. And Margot is just like us, and it's like, fuck, you fucking morons, thank you. And Quentin's like, what, really? And yeah, they're like very, very happy together, but they don't talk about it in that scene, but they become boyfriends right then and there, basically.
They decide they're going to be in a relationship.
Yeah, I think that Elliot even says, like, oh, we'll come back for, like, our anniversary trip next year, which I was like, yes.
Yeah, well, they negotiate the terms of the relationship, which is super funny.
Do they?
Well, that's later.
A little bit. Oh, is it later?
I'm getting that's in my notes.
Sorry, I love that.
Follow the notes.
It's also very funny to me that, like, they have been like having this whole relationship or whatever. You so undersold just how much pining there is in this fic. It's all pining.
Pining in this motherfucking
as
fic.
Per usual. Like, this is who I am as a person. This is the fanfic
I'm gonna throw something at you.
I know.
I can't believe you sent me 118,000 words of pining. It's all pining.
Stupid boy pining. Yeah.
Because one, this is a plot summary, not a feeling summary.
I know.
And two, no one is surprised by that. That is literally every Quellian fanfic you have ever sent.
Correct.
It's both of them pining, or one of them if it's only from one person's point of view.
I have a type.
Yes. We are all aware of this by now. This is season 3, Erin. Everyone knows.
No one is surprised.
That was great delivery.
Oh, God. So the orgy ends. They're all happy. They go back to school. And Elliot and Quentin basically tell their friends, yeah, we're boyfriends now. Deal with it. And there's something like the confrontation with the older students that were giving, like, Margot and Quentin a hard time. they've been dealt with off scene, off camera.
Yeah, so the whole thought there is that once Margot cleared up that she was not dating Quentin, then the rest of the physical kids, specifically the second and third years, were like, oh, he's their like property. He's like their pet. He's their project or whatnot. And that pisses Elliot off, and Margot too, off to no extent. So that's before they left for the orgy, and they were like, we got to get Quentin out of here. So like as soon as Quentin steps through the portal back from Antarctica, they're like, pack your bag. We packed your bags. We're going to Ibiza. And so now they've come back and to find that the friends have dealt with those rumors with physical violence and threats.
Yes.
Yep. Good friends.
Good friends.
Good job, guys. And where's my notes? God damn it. Why am I so predictable?
Yes, I love it.
So yeah, they're like, we're boyfriends now. Deal with it, bitches. And later on, Quentin and Elliot have sex with just each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked that it was a nice bookend to the first time they had sex.
Oh, yeah.
There were quite a bit of parallels. And they switch it up. Quentin is the top.
Mm-hmm.
He penetrates Elliot.
Yes, he does.
And he's also bossing him around to a certain extent.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that happened. Yeah.
And I did really enjoy that Quentin comes up with his own little nickname for Elliot, which was my love.
Yeah.
And I am there are certain little like pet names that I am a sucker for, and that's one of them. So I was just like,
I love that.
Good job, Fic.
Yes.
Good job, Fic writer.
We should say though that encounter eventually ends with Margot joining them.
I was going to get there.
I'm sorry, where are my notes?
You don't have any.
So fun. Do you have any idea how glad I am that I brought you two into each other's orbits?
Yes. It's fantastic.
I love it.
Yep.
Yeah, they have their own sex scene together. They finish, and then Margot joins them, and they have a very lovely threesome. Not threesome.
It's a free threesome.
Yeah.
Free threesome.
Oh my god.
That's when they have their discussion on their boundaries and what they consider their relationship to be. And Quentin and Elliot decide, well, basically reaffirm to each other using their words that we are exclusive to each other with two exceptions, and that is Margot and the annual orgy. Mm-hmm. But every other time, it's just them. And Margot gets to continue to be Margot and fuck whoever she wants, but is still not committed. Well, she's committed to their friendship.
Right, like she's able to still be a part of that relationship without the like exclusivity of it.
Yes, yes, and without the romantic love for it, because she does love them, and in the fic she says that Elliot's the love of her life.
Yeah. In
whatever way that means for her. Mm-hmm. So that is very important that they all establish that.
Yeah.
In verbal.
Yeah.
And more sex is had. There's like 3 more threesomes. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, just when you think you're done with the threesomes, they come back.
I have a line. Wait until this line.
Oh, I can't wait.
We're almost done. And as the fic is wrapping up, Julia talks to Quentin about how her and their friends have been working on a project to try and find a cure for cancer for Quentin's dad. And he's, of course, very touched by this, and it's very sweet. And Quentin also talks with Julia. He goes into more details about what happened with his ex-girlfriend, because Julia knew this ex.
Yeah.
And he tells her that I'm going to see a therapist, specifically for this issue, but presumably other stuff, because it is Quentin. Yeah. But to specifically work out his own...
like the trauma of that.
Yeah, the trauma of that, and realizing that and dealing with it. And then it cuts to basically the end of the fic, where all of their friends are gathered up in the common room or whatever, and they're going to watch a Lord of the Rings marathon. Yeah. And my line, my finale for the summary is, and just like the Lord of the Rings, specifically Return of the King, this fic will not fucking end. This fic has like 7 endings.
It sure does.
Every time that I was just like, that's a great line to end on, it kept going.
Yep.
And it kept going.
Yep.
And going. And going.
Yep.
And I was just like, Okay, this is the one time where I'm like, some fanfic writers need editors. You can sit them
just
down
a second eye.
and just be like, you don't need this. Just cut it. And that's the summary for that fanfic.
Wow.
Thoughts and feelings.
Dear Lord.
Alan, you go first.
Sure. I will say I did enjoy this fic. I thought...
Damn right you did.
I will say I was nervous when I saw that it was going to be a polyamory fic, because as we've discussed, all of my thoughts on that, where I am currently and personally, and I wasn't a huge fan of the first one we read. I can't remember if it was this season or last season, but there was one where they have a kid and Quentin lives across the hall.
Oh, yep. I think that was a couple episodes ago.
Yeah, so that might be this season.
Was that the found family one?
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly the one.
Yeah, because Margot and Elliot get married.
Yes, that one. I had trouble with that one. And so I was nervous that I was going to have this similar experience with this one. But what I really enjoyed that this one did is that you get... I think it like bounces. It does third person, and it jumps around between Quentin, Elliot, and Margot. So you get a really good scope of the feelings and what they're thinking, and it's all laid out from the beginning. Oftentimes I have issues with Margot and Elliot's like relationship when it gets into like the romance or like the sex or like the intimacy in other Elliot fics I've read, because I'm just like I'm not hardwired that way, and I think part of it is that I don't like the messiness of it, like the ambiguity. And a lot of fics justify it, and probably rightly so from what I understand of the characters. A lot of fics say like, oh, but people knew that that's just Quentin, that's just Elliot and Margot, like that's just how they were, which is fine, but not an explanation to me. Like it does nothing for me to delineate any type of lines or boundaries. And I thought that this fic was really good about talking those through. And like Margot was always like, "Can I join?" Like, and she was very conscious to like make eye contact with Elliot, like, "Can I do this? You know, can I jump in?" And it was, to me, I thought that was delightful. There was an exorbitant amount of sex, dear Lord, to the point by the end I was sexed out. I was like, I think I'm done.
Same. By those final sex scenes after Quentin and Elliot had their like second time together by themselves, and Margot joined, and they had their discussion about their relationship. All the other sex scenes, I just read the dialogue because I just couldn't take it anymore.
Okay. Excuse the fuck out of me for understanding the assignment.
You did not.
I did understand the assignment.
No, you did not.
Yes, I did.
Well,
we're gonna get into that.
Oh boy.
No.
Hang on, let me finish my thoughts before you go. I think Caitlin has more thoughts. I really enjoyed that aspect. I thought that the relationship was really well done. I loved that Quentin had friends in this one. So he usually has Julia as a friend, and like sometimes other people are like friendly acquaintance type people. But this was clearly like they were friends. Like they went to bat for Quentin, including Penny, which I'm like, sometimes that doesn't happen in fics, which fair with his character, and even Alice. I thought that was really sweet. I enjoy a good like strong friend family core. What I had issues with was the length. I think it desperately needed some like editing. I think just dramaturgically, it was just a little long-winded, and I
am biting my tongue.
And the end. I thought that by the end, Quentin was written almost. It just felt like almost too childlike for me. It like in the way that he was interacting with with Elliot. It felt odd to me. Like I was like, ooh, this is a little too like age play-y for me. And they hadn't specifically talked about age play, so to me it felt more like we're trying to make sure that you understand Quentin is submissive, but it was a little too much in my opinion by the end.
Would you say it squicked you?
It did squick me. Yeah, a little bit. The ending did.
I just like using that word around you because it makes you
cringe. It squicks me.
That's a good segue to go into my thoughts.
Yeah,
let me double check the tags because I want to see. No, now it's the tags because I want to see if they actually tagged the age play stuff.
Nope.
And they didn't. The fic doesn't not even technically. It doesn't use the general tag for daddy kink or mommy kink. It uses like the fandom specific tag for like Elliot's canonical daddy kink. Margot has a touch of mommy kink too. That's fine, But I am very much an advocate of properly tag your shit with the general tags. Because there are people that don't like that stuff, and they'll include it in they'll exclude it in their search on AO3. And if that shit isn't properly tagged, it's not going to be excluded. So...
Dylan, I have found out that the tags don't matter. people don't follow them.
Ellen knows from experience that people don't read the tags.
It's true, but when they're trying to avoid stuff, they don't read the tags. But when they're trying to avoid stuff and they're using AO3's exclusion search, then that's important for when you tag your stuff.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a fair point. I think if they wanted, you could have both. I think. Yeah. But as long as you have a way for people to like,
but you need to have the general
exclude
tag.
It.
The general tag has to be included. You can include your little fandom jokes and stuff, and like fandom specific tags, but also include the general tag. And that's just a PSA for all fanfic writers out there. Use the general tag, as well as other fun stuff, but that specifically, do that. And also, like you said, age play is also not tagged, which is also important.
I did not read that as age play.
Oh, interesting.
To me, that's how it read.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read it that way too. Especially for those. It was like the last sex scene. I
think.
The
very last one was where it got super like. I was like, oh, this feels like strange to me. This feels like out of somewhere.
Yeah. To me, it didn't feel like out of nowhere. It just felt like an escalation. Escalation. Thank you.
Yeah.
But I was still like, this was not included in the tags, but I can see it coming. But yeah, I was just kind of like, whatever. So Erin said earlier, and she's told me multiple times that this is she was debating between two fics, and this was the spiciest one she chose. And
I said it was spicier.
The spicier.
Which is important.
Yes. And I was like, ooh, wait, yay, I can't wait, because I knew that Erin does read BDSM. And so I opened up the fic, and I saw the tags, and I was like, because specifically, there's one in particular that's Dom sub undertones, which is fine. That's not what I was looking for. And what I want when I'm looking for, personally me, specifically BDSM. I do not want undertones. I want it to be the tone.
Caitlin, have we ever once on this podcast picked fics with the actual tag that we are talking about?
It doesn't need the tag because my fic doesn't have the literal BDSM tag, but it is very much a BDSM relationship, and it's all about that. In my opinion, you will tell me what you think later on. And like, yeah, there's a lot, as we said, kinky sex, but it's also like, it was just the same kinks over and over and over again, which is fine. But they weren't really explored in different ways, and that's kind of what I was hoping for. It was different explorations of kinks or using those kinks in different ways.
I think that's a fair assessment, too, because I think what it comes down to is that this fic is plot-driven and the BDSM or like all of the kink stuff is additional. It's not a story driven by that.
Yeah, the three of them and neither Elliot or Quentin are specifically in a BDSM relationship. That is not a requirement for them. Right. It's something that they enjoy, but it is not something that they require, that they need in this relationship.
I feel that.
I did enjoy during those sex scenes that there was like negotiation for kinks and stuff without going into too literal of like, okay, let's sit down. What do you like? What you don't? And it was very much in the moment, which felt right for them as a throuple and for the fic.
Yeah.
And same with like the way Elliot and Margot would just kind of like check in with each other and be like, is this okay? Are you okay with me doing this? And especially with Margot, like you said, asking, can I join? Are you okay? When Elliot admits that he's in love with Quentin, she even says, do you want me to stop fucking him?
Yeah.
like she's making sure that he's okay, because the last thing she wants is to hurt him.
Yeah.
So I did like that. What were the other things I liked?
Where are my notes?
Shut up. Oh, that was the other thing, that there's like hints of stuff. Like there's hints of Quentin going into subspace without him actually going that deep or without them exploring it.
Right.
So I would have actually enjoyed either a sequel. I would probably enjoy if there was like a sequel, or if there was a just more deeper exploration of that.
Yeah.
And the way that they feel about that. And same thing with like the daddy kink and the mommy kink and the age play. If there was just a little bit more exploration and not just like, hey, this is hot. Oh, and then the spanking.
Oh, yeah.
Which was great. But when they first, I think it was Margot that first brings it up. I see your face.
So it was great. End of sentence.
Yeah.
There's no but.
Aaron is like, thank you.
Other than the but that's being spanked.
I think it's Margot that first like brings up the idea of punishment. I think it's Margot.
Could be.
It's Margot or Elliot. One of them. But one of them brings up the idea of punishments, and I was just like, "Ooh, finally!" But it's not real punishments; it's sexy punishments, where it's like, "Ooh, you've been a bad boy, spank," and not just like, "No, you violated the terms of our agreement.
Right?
You're in trouble." It's just like, "Ooh,"
it was,
which is hot.
Yeah,
but I want more.
We have very different needs in fanfiction world.
Well, yeah, I know.
Yep.
We are different people.
We are
as much as we are the same, we are also different.
We are very different. So I have opinions.
What a shock.
I know. Shock of all shocks. Well, I think everything you raise is interesting, and fair. And I think you are, all the things that you're talking about make sense when you sort of like walk it through. It is interesting because we have very different interests in the aspects of BDSM that are important to us in a fixed situation. Because as we know, I don't like contrivances. So when things get into the really heavily like contract negotiation, like really heavy into the scene, which is important in a real like, just like that is not the stuff that is particularly interesting to me or whatever. It's the dynamics of the interplay between the characters and how the like questions of control and intimacy come into play. That's what I'm interested in, and that's what this fic is 100% about, is navigating that.
I can see that, yeah. So you enjoy like how that interplays with like their own like issues, their like traumas, or what they bring to the table.
Or just sort of like how their personalities come through in these like scenarios. And so I have very little interest in the like...
in the BDSM aspect of BDSM.
But that makes sense for me if you think
no, for
like,
sure.
It's very much about the interpersonal relationship.
And I think that like we've spoken to before, there is value in like just taking characters that you like and exploring a different topic and like how they would react in that.
Yeah.
I come back to this fic a lot.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's important to me.
Good.
Well, it's like there's this section in I think the last chapter where they have a conversation. They're like in the middle of it, one of their many threesomes, or they're just at the end of it, and Q is like, you guys are so good at sex, and Margot and Elliot are like, yeah, it was really all us, sarcastically, like they're saying it as sarcasm, and he goes, well, I'm not very good at it, and he's serious, and they're like, what? Like they're like, you cannot be serious, you cannot think this about yourself, and he's like, well, I'm good at being Play-Doh, like I'll do whatever you mold, I'll be whatever you mold me into. And Margot almost like throws up. She's like, she's so upset by this. And Elliot is like almost gonna cry. And they're both like, no. Like, you are not important to us because we've molded you into some shape that we want you to be in. You're important to us because you're you. And we love you. And it would be like, that is true regardless of all of this. And Margot sort of lightens the mood and is like, you don't have to like basically turn yourself into a Stepford wife for us. And makes a fandom like a reference, like a nerdy reference that I didn't get, so I don't remember, but she references some like TV show or something.
Oh yeah, that's right,
where the wife turns into whatever the husband wants after they get married. Elliot also doesn't understand the reference.
We are all Elliots in this case.
So, and Quentin thinks that's like funny and it like lightens the mood, but I reread that section all the time.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It
has great moments. I do think that the way that they explore the relationship again is very well done. I really this is one of, if not my favorite, like Elliot Margot interplays, like how they handled that. That was really well done.
And when I said spicier, Caitlin, I literally meant more sex. That was literally what I meant.
maybe you should have just a little less.
I should have Well, I overdid it on the Old Bay.
I was gonna say, this is the equivalent of like being like, I'm gonna try something new, and then
Put too much Old Bay on it. So yeah, I mean, this in terms of like the spice factor about it is certainly more just because like I don't tend to read things that are this outright smutty. So for me, I was like, this is a vacation to Smutville.
Yeah, it really was. Escape to Smutville.
Yeah. This could have literally been your smut fix submission.
Could have been a smut fix submission.
If we remember, I failed that assignment.
Yeah,
and you failed this one. It's great.
I did not fail.
You said I did.
I did not.
We caught that on
fail
audio.
the assignment.
I'm just kidding.
I mean,
shush.
I'm just kidding.
You are a guest in this house.
Can I say though, something else that I really liked from this fic that I'm just now remembering, many times, which cause I think it's canon, with the whole Ibiza trip and the magic orgies.
Yeah, it is.
This is the first time we've seen it.
Yep.
And usually I'm full of trepidation because I don't like infidelity and like all of that stuff. But you know, it was so cool. I loved getting that aspect of it. I don't know how much of it is like actual show or
we don't ever really see Ibiza or
tragic.
Well, yeah,
Colto in
Magicians
the show.
was not on HBO.
No, it was on
not
Sci-Fi.
show that.
So there's certain elements of this that were taken from canon and then extrapolated into this. I personally agree with you. I think this is one of the best interpretations of Encanto
I
and
loved
Colto.
it. I thought it was really cool.
I love the whole thing with the elders and like
the
how
elders was
they're,
cool.
Like,
That was very interesting.
I also-
clearly, like ancient beings.
And also really, really loved the like people going for different things. So like you eat the food and it like reminds you of what is it was like home or like you,
It's
so
like,
you eat anything and it like memories of things that you've like,
one Margot says like the cake tastes like a sunset or something like
yeah.
that. Yeah, and or like some are there for the drugs, some are there for like everyone's there for different things.
Yeah, so like the thing that everyone partakes in is different, but like I thought it was so cool. Very well done.
Yeah, and they have a sort of interesting moment too where they're like, it's really easy to sort of become like too into this.
Yeah.
Like this sucks you in if you're not careful. And that I thought was kind of interesting too. In general, I find this is like somehow one of like my comfort fics that I go back to a lot.
That's so
Which is
interesting.
so hilarious.
Do you reread it annually?
No, I do not reread it annually. I literally like jump through different like
You would
parts
have
of
to,
it
it's so
that
long.
remember me. Would you stop it? There are certain sections I go back to and reread. And I think there's something about like, oh, we're going to get a little too serious now. There's something about that, particularly the way that this fic is like, it's about, I love you for you, regardless of what you do for me. That was a thing I needed.
Yeah.
And sometimes still need.
Yeah.
And
I
so
think that's fair.
I come back to this a lot for that.
I love that.
I'm sorry I didn't suit your BDSM taste, Caitlin. Sorry it wasn't BDSM enough for you, Caitlin.
Case?
But it was emotionally fulfilling for me.
I'm glad for that. I'm glad you enjoy it.
I don't remember the tag
I'm happy
being
for
emotionally
you.
fulfilling, but okay.
Did I fucking ask you, Al?
I wanna have one where she fails, like I failed.
Yeah, you didn't fail.
No, it was like, it was a reach when I did smut. It was a reach.
Yeah.
You had to squint.
I was like, excuse me. I fulfilled the terms of the assignment.
But I think that brings us to everyone's favorite part. What do we rate this? Caitlin would.
Caitlin rates it, right? Are you rating it too?
I'm
Kyla?
rating it too.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
We
average
haven't
it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we
two
can
of
do
us?
that. That's what we've done with the guest readings.
Yep.
Would you like to start?
Sure.
Think carefully.
I wrote it down already.
Oh, I love that. Where are my notes?
3.7.
I'll take it. It's fine.
That was mine too. That's my rating. I'm so sorry.
So with brownie points, it's a 4.
Well,
Nope.
that was. Listeners, I wish that you could see my vantage point because I said that was mine too. Looked over at Aaron, and Aaron's face dropped.
And I was like, no, you were supposed to fix that, Alan.
I also.
You were the curve, bitch.
There is no curve tonight.
I think it's very well done. It has incredible
I'll take it. Fine.
like it's great relationship dynamics. I think that a lot of the world building was really interesting. But I think it was just a little long-winded. It could have used with a little.
I'll take long-winded.
editing.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's true. It is a very long fic, and it could definitely be cut down.
Yeah.
But I also everybody has their indulgence fics, right?
Yeah, for sure.
100%. We are going to be talking about one of mine.
Yep.
As discussed. I already know Erin has a lot to say about it because I know there's stuff in there she does not like.
Well, I get to tell the summary,
You
so
do get
you
to the
might.
summary, and I will chime in.
Woo.
I feel like I'm in danger.
Well,
Moving forward.
no, but now.
Well, I don't take these things personally, Erin.
Wow.
Oh my god.
Yikes.
911, I'd like to report a murder.
You can't preemptively report the murder.
911, I'll call back in 20 minutes.
The place is going to be like another 2 hours. We have to fight.
Which one do we want to read next?
I think Aaron should talk about the one that I submitted.
Agreed. I think we should end with Caitlin's. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, friends. So, a little palate cleanser for us all. A nice little short burst of energy. Alan submitted a fic called Good Boy. So, this fic is also on AO3, as most of our fics are.
Mm-hmm.
It is a good old Stucky fic, so we are firmly in our camps today.
Yup.
It is the author's name is Tried Untour. Tried and Tour?
Yeah, I thought it was Tried Untrue when I first typed it in, and I was like, that's incorrect.
Is it like unsure, like adventure?
Tried Untrue?
Tried Untrue?
I apologize to the author of this fic, but you have a very difficult to pronounce username. And the summary says, Bucky is still adjusting to life with the Avengers, and Steve is willing to do whatever it takes to make him feel comfortable. Increasingly, though, what seems to make him comfortable is strangely intimate. Surprise, Steve! You're a gentle dom, and Bucky wants to be your pretty pet! So this fic is a cool 13,473 words, which is delightful. And it starts off with Steve and Bucky hanging out, and Steve is drawing, and Bucky's napping, and it's a whole thing. I didn't take notes, so this is going to be an adventure.
Yeah, well, this is going to be a Tried Untrue.
It was still an adventure, even with my notes.
So basically, like, to do some really like broad stroke storytelling, because we do have another long fic to talk about. Steve and Bucky have this sort of like casual friendship. They spend a lot of time together. Bucky is still healing from all of the things that he's been through. It ends up with a lot of sort of platonic touching and like spending a lot of time together. And over the course of time, it sort of starts to become that Bucky, it like indicates an interest in more and like more physical intimacy and stuff like that. And that kind of freaks Steve out. So they're like, they will spend quiet mornings together. Steve will draw, but he'll hide his drawings from Bucky because he doesn't want to see that he's sketching him. So like, you also know that Steve has feelings from the start, even if Steve doesn't realize that that's what it is. So like, they have this one instance where Steve, like early on in the fic, Steve suggests that Bucky has a lot of energy. He's like, why don't we go spar? Like, why don't we go fight? So they do that, and Bucky does really well, and like it seems to work out really well, and it kind of devolves into like a thing, but Steve doesn't really realize it, and then he sends him to go shower, and Bucky to go shower. And Bucky's in the shower for like 20 minutes, and Steve is like, are you dead? What's happening? And Bucky's just been standing in the shower for like 20 minutes, clearly like coming down from this sparring session that he like had worked himself up in. And like, I don't know if the implication is that he's like had jerked off in the shower, or if it's like that he was like basically giving himself aftercare. I read it more as like an aftercare situation. And Steve is like, are you good? And Bucky's like, yeah, I'm fine. And then like rushes through his shower, and they move on with their life. At this point in time, Steve is sort of talking vaguely to Sam about things. Sam acts as all of their therapists in every fic. And so at one point, like while Steve and Bucky are sitting around in their apartment or whatever, Steve starts playing with Bucky's hair, and Bucky sort of maneuvers it to be more of like a choking thing, and Steve bolts. And after he had talked to Sam about Bucky before, at this point he's like, I need to talk to somebody about this because I have no fucking clue what's going on, and it seems like something much bigger than what I thought this was. And Sam is like, have you talked to Bucky? Like, have you used your words? And Steve's like, no. Is it a sex thing? And Sam's like, you have to talk to Bucky, my dear. Like, I don't know what to tell you. But they do have a sort of interesting conversation where Steve is having a moment of like, well, is he conflating what our lives with like what Hydra did to him? And Sam's like, I don't think they cuddled him and like played with his hair. Like, I really don't think that's what it's happening here. But you need to talk to Bucky. Like, he's the only one that's going to be able to give you the answers that you're looking for. And be patient about it, because he's going through some shit, my dude. Chill out. And Steve's like, cool. And when Steve goes back to Bucky and he's like, hey, we got to talk about it, Bucky's like, we don't have to talk about it. We don't have to talk about it. It's fine. We don't have to talk about it. So they talk about it, and Steve is like, well, after everything, I figured you'd want to be in control. Like, I figured you'd want to have control back. And Bucky's like, oh, no. Like, I have to be in such high control of myself all the time, in every second of every day, that, like, I just want someone to take that control for a little bit and like make it so that way like I'm safe and I don't have to worry about it, and I trust you to do that. So that is sort of the start kind of like this new dynamic, or like the more sort of like official start of the dynamic. Oh, and they start negotiating things. Just start, not like contracty stuff, but Steve is like, so you wanted me to touch your hair? Yes. Still good? And Bucky's like, yes. Which, like, relatable. Bucky, okay, I understand.
True.
And they also agree on a safe word.
Yes.
Which I was very excited
agree
about.
on a safe word.
I literally wrote down, safe word! Yes, good!
We love that for them.
They choose Jersey and as the safe word. And I love that every time, like, Steve checks in, he's like, are you anywhere near the state?
Yeah. So, truly broad strokes from here, they start developing more of a relationship around this dynamic of Steve being in control and Bucky relinquishing control. And there are a couple of different instances of that happening when, you know, Bucky has a rough day, or if he like really disobeys an order or something and just needs somebody to like pull him back in line, Steve is the person he goes to. And that like continues, but it's not sexual for a really long time until basically the end of the fic. They have a little bit of a blow up where Steve was kind of like, well, I don't want to take it, like, where Steve is coming from, although he is poor at communicating this, is he's like, I don't want to take advantage of you when you're vulnerable. And my feelings for you and me acting on those feelings for you feels like taking advantage of you because you don't think of me that way. And he does not communicate this effectively. No. And as they have a fight, and Bucky's like, you didn't even fucking ask me what I feel for you. And that's the problem. So they have a fight. Because Steve doesn't want to fuck around with Bucky and poorly communicates his reason why. In the resolution of the fight, it becomes clear that they both have feelings for each other, do want to have sex. Everything is grand.
Yeah.
And that's their relationship.
Yes.
Yep.
That is the shortest summary I've ever given of anything in my entire life.
It is true. I'm proud of you.
Yep. It was delightful. It was a really nice change of pace after the two that we sent you, Alan. And who doesn't love some good Stucky dynamic? I mean, it wasn't like, you know, it's not necessarily something that I'd like write home about, but it was like, it was delightful. It was sweet. I really liked the dynamic between the two. I wish there had been, it's very much from Steve's point of view. I wish we'd gotten a little bit more of Bucky's internal process, but that would be my only complaint with it.
I feel that.
It was a good time.
I loved this.
Yes, Caitlin, yes.
When I finished it, I was just like, did Alan like look at the tags of the fic I sent? Because this is like literally the same
I was just noticing that.
I was just like, either Alan saw the tags and was just like, how can I please our guest? Or I think we have like discussed this, that we have a lot of similarities.
I think we do.
With like stuff that we enjoy reading in fan fiction. It's just like, Alan is just like a different version of me. He's a different variant of me. And
I'm over here like, what are you all on?
Can I say that like when Caitlin was talking about this tags, I just looked over and Aaron was furiously scrolling up to look at the tags.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was like, what is it? And I was like, oh yeah.
And I really liked like their fight that they had. That fight started because Bucky tried to initiate a blowjob.
Yeah.
With Steve in the showers.
That's what it was.
Steve safe words out. The Dom, even though they're not necessarily using those terms, he is the Dom in the situation, and he safe words out. And people that are just vaguely aware of BDSM never realize that Doms can safe word out too.
Yeah. That
they can have limits, that they can be like, I'm not comfortable with this for whatever reason. So I appreciated that type of situation was in this sweet little fic. And I was just like, it's nice to see different parts of a BDSM relationship in these shorter fics that you might not expect.
Yeah.
So I really liked that. What was the other thing that I enjoyed? Just all all the kinks in it.
Yeah, it was nice. I thought it culminated in a really good sex scene up against the window.
Yes.
I was like, yes. Oh, yes, because there was that whole, like, there was a bit of voyeur play, too, where it was like, there was like a very far away there was a woman working in an office, but obviously can't see this far.
Yeah, because they're in Avengers/Stark Tower.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, they're really high up, but the windows are open and there's clearly people in the offices across the street, and they could just as easily look over and see something. They might not.
Yeah.
They could.
I thought that was spicy AF.
I hated it.
I loved it.
That's
and I'm not an exhibitionist, so I was just like,
No.
that's hot.
Nope. That was a big ol' squick for me. I was like, I have to decide that these windows are tinted. I did. I was like, these windows are tinted. She can't see them. It's okay.
Yeah, it was great. I had a great time. I was very happy to read it. Good job, Alan.
Yay, I'm glad you enjoyed it.
You ready to rate it, Aaron?
Sure. 3.7.
That's fair.
Yep.
Caitlin?
4.4.
Fuck you. Absolutely fucking not.
What is that? What does that average out to? Like a 4.1?
2.3. Fine.
That's not how that works.
I'm being a little vindictive. No, it is good. It's,
3.7 sounds about
Yeah.
sounds about right where I would have put you.
Yeah.
In my head. Nice. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yay!
I was glad I found something that was 13,000 words.
Yeah, that was appreciated.
Yes.
Oh,
that was
the
the right
PDF
call.
version of that was 28 pages.
A sensible pamphlet.
Yes.
The Reynolds pamphlet?
The Reynolds pamphlet.
A novella, if you will.
All right.
Okay, Alan, here we go.
Yeah,
All
hang on. Let me.
Let's bear in mind that we're already an hour and a half into this recording.
Hooray!
Tough shit.
Feel free to just do bullet points.
I'm gonna have to. Okay, so moving on to what Caitlin sent in. Caitlin sent us Needs Must. It's on Archive of Our Own, and it is written by That Other Perv, which a great
Bless.
author name. Congrats.
I love her name. It's amazing.
And as we have previously discussed, this is a Suits fanfic. Our second one on the show. The first one also being a Caitlin rec. Back in our Pizza Boy episode was the word I was looking for. The summary reads: when Grammy needs an upgrade in care, Mike knows that the usual one-off gig as a paid submissive won't be enough. He takes a job that he's been refusing for a while, a long-term, full-time contract. He expects his client to be a sadistic asshole. He expects not to like it. He's wrong on both counts. And boy, if that isn't a great summary for what we're about to venture into.
That's it.
Yes, so very broad strokes again. So the fic starts with Mike needing money for his grandmother, which I remember being a plot point from the first fic we read. So I guess in the show, Grammy needs help.
Yep. This is similar to the Quelliot fic. This is an AU version of season 1.
Oh, yes, I remember.
Which is also what Pizza Boy AU was. It was also an AU of season 1.
I love that.
There's a lot of these in the Suits fandom.
I love that for us.
Yes.
Yeah, so Grams needs an upgrade in care, and Mike needs money because he is working as a delivery boy during the day, and then doing something else at night. He takes stints as a paid submissive every now and then from Lewis.
Yes, Lewis in this AU, he runs like not a brothel, but like a paid submissive agency.
Yeah. Through a club, through like a kink club that he runs, like as a side service type thing.
Yes. It's on the down low. It's under the books. Under the table.
Under the
That's
table.
the word.
Under the books.
It's off the table,
books.
under the
Off
books.
the table, under the books. There we go. That's it.
Yes, so he does this, and as the summary mentioned, there's been a client that really wants him, but Mike has not wanted to because it's a full-time gig, basically, and he is not quite ready to do that. And in Mike's head, he doesn't like the submissive part of it. He's just like, this is just a job, it's good money, and I don't get anything out of it. So he lays his terms out for Lewis, and he's like, this is how much I need. And Lewis is like, you're not getting that, but I'll ask. And then the client is Harvey Specter, and so he asks to meet Mike, and they kind of hash over what the requirements would be and they agree on a trial run of a weekend, 2 days, to just kind of see if they're going to be a fit before they sign anything. And it's a pretty extensive contract. It's like Mike isn't allowed to do drugs, which is fair. He can be subjected to drug tests at any point. It has to be exclusive. They have to get STI tests. Whenever he comes to Harvey's apartment, he has to be fully naked by the time he gets out of the elevator, like the private elevator into Harvey's place. He is only ever allowed to be fed by Harvey. He can't eat as long as he's on his regular hours. So they settle on a full schedule where he's on call some days and he has a day off to go see his grandmother. And I was like, wow. And the benefits package was great. Yeah. I will say I finished the first 2 or 3 chapters. By the time they get to the first sex scene that there is between them, I was like, wow, where do I get me one of these? I would love nothing more.
You and I had very different reactions to that. I was like, you should have at least 2 days off.
Aaron says labor rights.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Where is your union?
Is it so hard to spend the day in a fucking penthouse?
Yes.
Getting fed by this gorgeous lawyer? Are you kidding me?
Still a job. I felt so suffocated by that.
Wow. You're similarly different. Very different.
Very different.
My reaction to that was literally no.
Literally,
hard pass.
I remember finishing and I was like, I need to use the bathroom. I went to the bathroom and when I was using the bathroom, washing my hands, I was like, man, all I'm thinking right now is I want me one of these. No. Where do I get one?
I literally was like, I would fucking never.
Well, that doesn't surprise me in any way, shape, or form. No. Just knowing your preferences for any type of relationship. So, I knew you were gonna hate that.
My preference is leave me alone.
Yeah. Don't look at me.
Yeah.
So yes, eventually they sign the contract. Grammy is in good care, and they start. You get a good view of what Mike's days are as a paid submissive for Harvey. Basically, a lot of lounging, a lot of sitting and cuddling his leg basically as a pet, hands running through his hair kind of thing. And something that I'd forgotten from the first fic is that Mike has eidetic memory. Is that how you say it? Eidetic.
Basically
photographic memory.
Yes.
So he remembers everything, and so there are times where he is bored because Harvey's always working is the thing, and so he will he read The Hobbit in his head again. He's like, I'm just gonna skip through my favorite parts of The Hobbit, and that was really cool. And at times Harvey's like, oh, well, go pick out a book and just amuse yourself somehow. And so Mike always gets the law books and he's memorizing all of this. So eventually when Harvey starts reading out loud to him as a soothing type of thing, Mike is able to start being oh, by the way, your client's getting screwed over in that deal, page 1415. And Harvey's like, I'm sorry. And there's a good point where because Mike is half asleep when he says this, and he just hears Harvey flip through the pages, and he says, how did you know what page? And Mike, as he's going to sleep, says, I counted as you turn, and goes to sleep. And so that's the first sign to Harvey. We're oh, this guy is not just great at being a submissive, but also it has a brilliant mind.
And it's also it's not just because he reads the law books, is because before his life turned, a downward spiral, it's because he wanted to be a lawyer. Yeah. Before things went wrong. Yeah, so he's already into learning about the law and stuff. But he is interested, and so he reads the law books. And there's even a line where Mike thinks that Harvey was probably expecting him to pick one of the fictional novels, but is probably surprised that he's actually reading the law book, and he finishes it and isn't just bored. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that's Harvey being what's up with you? Yeah, you're not just cute. You're something else.
There's something else, yeah. And so that eventually leads us to what is the premise of Suits, I assume, where Harvey offers, or more so tells Mike that he's going to start as a paralegal at
Pearson Hardman.
Pearson Hardman, thank you.
It's so nice having someone who knows the show
in
the room.
And so begins Mike's journey as a paralegal, and he's really good at it with his memory, and he's just obviously he's devouring the work with someone who hasn't who loves what he's doing but hasn't had the chance to, which is really fascinating. He's still subbing, and the schedule gets a little more wonky. He has to renegotiate terms. There's a whole renegotiating of things where he's can we make things a little less because his day off used to be Saturday because Harvey would have to work on Saturdays. But now that Mike is also working Saturday, he's like, well, that does me no good. So can I have a different day off? And I don't want to wait till 7:30 if I'm here and ready to be a sub at like 5. Can it just be like whenever we're ready? And so they renegotiate, and it makes it more of an open type thing, like, oh yeah, just whenever we're feeling it. But what that in turn does is it makes it feel more like a relationship. And so Mike immediately realizes, oh fuck, I'm in love with this dude, which wouldn't we all be?
Except Aaron.
Except Aaron.
Yeah. Thank you. I was like, no, I could pass.
There's a moment too where Harvey has a really bad week where he doesn't want to like see Mike, and it's basically because he has just had to go to court against Scotty, who is his ex, and the last submissive he had. And it's like, ooh. And during this point, Mike has found an old collar. Mike has his own collar that he puts on every time. And while looking for a different like kitchen supply one morning, he finds this box with this other collar, and he's like, oh shit. And it very obviously affects Harvey. And the whole story there is that, you know, his ex left him 5 days before their wedding, and like it's basically traumatized Harvey to a point where he doesn't want to like have feelings ever again. Which is, of course, shortly thereafter is when Harvey realizes he's in love with Mike. And he's promptly freaks out one night when Mike is working late, and instead of going over to Harvey's, he decides to stop by his own apartment, which he hasn't seen in months because he just spends it at Harvey's, basically almost moved in at Harvey's. But he was really keyed up from all the coffee he had, and he finished up earlier than he thought he would. And he's like, I'm just going to go to my apartment and see what it's like. And he fell asleep there. The next morning, Harvey is pissed, like so angry. He's like, where the fuck were you? And Mike's like, well, I told you I was going to be working late. And Harvey said, yeah, working here. Where were you? You weren't here. And Mike's like, well, I went to my own apartment. You know, I have my own apartment. And that's Harvey's like, oh, Mike still has like a backup plan. He's like, he's not fully into this. And so he fires Mike as a sub right there. And it was the most devastating thing to happen in my morning.
Well, not right there, because Harvey also, like, at least how I've always read it, he realizes, fuck, I myself forgot this is a job. And he knows that he has crossed the line.
Yeah.
And so he dismisses Mike. And then later on in the day, he explains to him that, he tells him that you're going to go back to school and get your degree so that you can then go to law school. And he uses that as also an excuse to end their relationship.
Yeah, like you won't have enough time.
Yeah. And he's like, it's time, Mike.
Oh, yeah, because it's like, it was always going to end.
Yeah. And it is devastating.
Yeah, you saying this gives me chills. I'm like, oh, I read that and I was like, nah.
Oh, there is a scene that I need to talk about.
Oh my god!
Because I have a feeling you felt the same way.
Probably. So this devastates Mike, Caitlin, and Alan
Yes.
all at once.
Aaron doesn't care.
Aaron was like, eh.
And I'm sitting there being like, it's a little weird to fuck your boss. Maybe you should end this relationship. That's probably a good idea.
Where is your sense of adventure?
It's called fiction, Aaron.
Even in my fictional world, I'm like,
that's a you problem.
You're no fun.
No, I keep going.
So that happens. Mike is devastated, goes home early, and he's like, I can't do this. And like, he hasn't been high for I think it's either 6 months or a year. It's been almost a year since he's been employed as a sub. He hasn't gotten high. And he goes over to his friend Trevor's, and like, he says, fuck it, I guess I'm not gonna get drug tested by my dom. I'm just gonna get high. So
he has like a mini bender.
Yeah.
And also he experiences, of course, extreme sub drop.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's rough.
Mm-hmm.
Poor baby.
And so he's like, I'm going to go talk to Harvey. And he goes to Harvey's apartment in like the middle of the night. And he's like basically staring at the building. He's like, I should go in. And then he hears he hears Harvey's voice down the street. He turns, and Harvey's coming with like this very beautiful woman, and Mike sees him, and Harvey sends the unnamed woman into his building. Is like, wait for me. And that is like the last straw for Mike, Caitlin, and Alan, because Mike is devastated. It's like, oh, not only have I been fired, I have already been replaced. And he tucks tail and runs off. And thus begins a very painful 6 months of like feeling unwell. And it's very obvious that Mike is like trying to drown himself in work so that he doesn't think about Harvey. And like the fact that Harvey is very pointedly ignoring him. Like even all of his assignments that come from Harvey just come through like the office mail. It's no contact like there used to be. That eventually leads Mike into a club, the club that Lewis owns, and he starts experimenting with like impact play, particularly, or in the first session he goes with Matt. And Matt is very nice, very lovely. And in the middle of the first impact play session, Mike bursts into tears and like is just. And if I remember correctly, it's the first time in the fic that he bursts into tears. Where like it's because he's just been angry and stewing in it, and he's been repressing all of that, and this allowed him to like have that cathartic moment. And I was like, you poor baby.
The first time that I read that chapter when it got posted, and I got to that scene, I sobbed. I was dying. And the second time I reread it, also sobbed. I haven't cried since then because I know it's coming.
Yeah.
But it's like that.
It was very affecting.
Has stayed in my mind since that chapter.
It's so
obviously,
beautiful.
And that was this fic was published in 2012.
Yeah.
So that scene has stayed in my mind for years.
It's a good one, yeah, for sure. And I think it like talks a lot about the characterization of Mike, especially in the fic. I thought it was very well done. And that breaks the ice for Mike to start moving past the anger, trying to work past not just letting that fuel his life. And he starts like going, like he makes friends with Tessa and all of the other people in the club, and he starts going to like these parties where Tessa does bondage and he is blindfolded, and all these people are like petting him, and it's like he's getting that release, that feeling that he wants.
And he learns because there's a line earlier where he thought to himself he was worried that only Harvey could give that feeling to him. And so that's kind of why he goes to the club, to explore that and see if he can still get that feeling from someone else.
Right.
So he's able to explore other kinks, other forms of play, and also experience some other doms. And he also tries topping.
Yeah,
and he actually enjoys it.
He tops a lot.
Yeah, we don't see it. Which I was a little like, I wish I could have at least seen one scene. But that's okay.
Yeah, there was a lot. Still, there was a lot to go. And so as he's getting more comfortable in his skin and in the subspace type things, he's also been able to have a better rapport with Harvey. Like he's been able to like actually have a conversation and not want to like just scream the whole time. And so now they're back to like a semi-working work relationship where they make a good team and they're helping each other out. And you get kind of bits and pieces here and there that Harvey's having a really hard time with it. Like there's a point where there's a suit against the former district attorney, or general attorney?
District attorney.
It's been found out that he's been doing like shady dealings and stuff, and Harvey used to work exclusively with that district attorney. An ADA. So he has to go back and fix all the shit that he fucked up. And who's there to help him but Mike. And Mike is like obviously really good at it, and it's like a really nice moment. And it all kind of comes to a head when Harvey's been just getting worse and worse, just like really angry all the time. It's obvious he's not sleeping very well. And Donna is like basically doing everything she can to signal to Mike, like, fix this, please. And this one day, everyone's basically gone out to lunch, and Mike is about to go to lunch, but Harvey calls him in and is like, I need your help with this one thing, so hurry up. And he's like, okay. And he was going to meet Matt for like lunch and a drink or something, and Matt brings him food, and he's like, here, so you should eat. And it's like a really sweet moment. And Harvey comes down and is like, what part of now didn't you get? And it's like, oh, what the fuck? He's livid to see Matt and Mike. He is livid. And he's like, my office now. And he goes back to his office, and Mike is like, fuck that. And he continues to have a little moment with Matt. I was like, yeah, I guess I'm gonna get my ass chewed at or whatnot. And so he goes up, and Harvey's pissed and basically says, what took you so long? Why weren't you here? And Mike says, well, I was getting all the stuff you needed. And Harvey says, no, you were talking to your boyfriend. And Mike is like, that's not really any of your business. And that gets Harvey, because he's like, oh. And I don't remember the exact quoting, but basically it ends with him asking, like, have you, has he topped you? Or something like that. Mike has to be like, yeah, like, it's none of your business, but yeah, like, we have played together. And Harvey has a moment where he like steps back and looks out a window and he's like, all right, I'd like to renegotiate a new contract. Here's how much you're going to be paid. And I want exclusivity with none of the like benefits. Like, I don't want to have sex with you. I just want exclusivity. And Mike is so offended. And he's like, no, fuck you. You don't get to like dictate my life that way. And he storms off and he's like, and he basically threatens to go to HR with it, which, you know, fair play. Harvey,
he should have.
Shush.
Fictional.
Inappropriate.
Shush. So later that night, he's high at his apartment because he's just like, I don't know what to think about that, because he understands. He knows that Harvey loves him and that the reason that he was cut off was because he was afraid of that. But because he doesn't have the whole story with Scotty and everything like that. Oh, he goes to Matt's first.
Because Matt, when Harvey storms off the first time, he's like, oh, I didn't realize that you knew Harvey.
Yeah.
And Mike's like, what, you guys know each other? He's like, yeah. And just come to my place later and I'll tell you at least what I know. And he gives him the broad strokes of the relationship between Scotty and Harvey and tells him how Scotty broke up with him in public at the club. And she yelled at him something like, you don't want a sub, you want like a pet and a Stepford wife.
Yeah.
And of course he was humiliated by that and has never stepped back in the club again.
Unpopular opinion, she was right.
Yeah, unpopular indeed.
Yeah.
So that now Mike's in his apartment. He's getting high.
Minority in this space.
Mike's at his apartment getting high. Harvey comes over, apologizes. Here's the thing: is that Harvey was like, I'm sorry. Harvey's very genuinely sorry. Because he realizes what happened, that he lost control and was trying to dictate Mike's life when he doesn't have that control anymore. And Mike is like, and Harvey says, I apologize. I'm so sorry. It shouldn't happen. I am going to start the paperwork so that you get to move to so that someone else is your supervisor. And that's what sets Mike off. He's like, fuck you. This is you yet again trying to control. You're trying to cut me out because you think that that's what I want, but you're not asking me. You're not communicating with me. And Harvey's like, that's not what you want? And Mike is like, get out of my house. I can't talk to you right now. Please.
I need space.
Yes.
You fucking dumbass.
Yeah. And so then he spends a week kind of letting Harvey stew in it, being nervous about Mike going to HR and basically reporting him. And Mike makes a contract, goes to Harvey and is like, these are the terms. And basically says, I want to go to school full time, 3 years, but I don't have the tuition. I need you to pay that tuition, pay for my grandmother's medical bills. I'm moving in with you. Also, neither of us can break this contract for 3 years unless it's, and there's a clause for abuse, that's fine.
Well, and he kind of just uses the whole money thing as an excuse.
Yeah.
It's just, he doesn't really require that, obviously, but he's just like, this is just the gateway in order to get Harvey to fucking agree to this.
Mike doesn't need this. He would be happy with I think he also needed it, but Mike thinks he doesn't need it. He's like, this is for Harvey's peace of mind. But we know as readers that it's also for Mike. Mike needs the reassurance that he's not just going to get kicked out again the next day. And Harvey is reticent to just sign. He signs, but he doesn't want Mike to sign until they have a second trial period, another weekend. Mike is like, you're dumb. I'm gonna sign this. And Harvey says, please give me the weekend. They have the weekend. I thought it was the culmination of this fic, which was they played with bondage and cuffing Mike, and he goes into subspace completely.
And a spreader bar.
Thank you. Where Mike realizes that even though he had been participating fully and he did trust Harvey before, now it was he let himself go fully into that subspace, and it was such a different experience from what he've had, and it was really interesting. And the fic ends with them together and both signing the contract, and it's very sweet. And that's fic.
Oh, there's one other thing.
You missed a very important part
Which
of the
one?
ending of that fic.
How hard.
Oh my god, yes.
Learned about Mike.
Oh my god. Yep. So yep, at the literally the last chapter, Harvey's like, don't you want to know why I held out for you? This was specific to you. And Mike doesn't realize oh, yeah, that is weird. He just assumed that no one else wanted a full-time gig with a rich, handsome lawyer. And so he's like, oh yeah, now I want to know. And there's this very long roundabout way basically saying that Harvey had a client.
Yeah, he had a client at the law firm.
A very rich and powerful client that got off on humiliating people, but not people who were into humiliation, because the whole part of that twisted person was that he needed to know that they were actually legitimately humiliated and weren't getting anything out of it.
Yes.
So it was abuse. And Harvey, in his mind, was like, I know a way to like kind of curtail this and make this like edit it basically so it's not as bad. In his head, he's saving other young boys in the street, so he sends them to Lewis, and Lewis is been proven to have like great screening and is very like secure about things, and like it's a good environment supposedly, but
it's better than
the alternative.
At least in this situation, because they can't get this guy to be locked up.
Right, exactly. And so Harvey thought that was good, and then eventually the twisted client shows Harvey videos that he's been taking of these people who were blindfolded and he was humiliating, and Harvey realizes that there's been videotapes, and so it leads into this whole investigation and them scrubbing that, and that's when he first sees Mike. And we find out that those were some of the worst experiences that Mike ever had, because he was blindfolded, so he doesn't know who this client is, and he didn't know that he was possibly working at the firm. And there was this whole thing where he was like, I could have seen him, and Harvey says, no, I made sure that he was sent away. I moved him to a different firm before you started. And the video of Mike shows him crying on the ground, like blindfolded, and just, it's awful. And Mike is like, what about that made you, like, why did you choose me over the other videos? And Harvey basically says, I could tell that it was affecting you the worst. Like, it was breaking your heart every time it happened. And the gist of it is that Mike's like, oh, so this was like love at first sight. And Harvey's like, no, it wasn't that. We don't know. I think it was left very, very gray. But yes. And so Harvey's saying this to like, this is the last thing that Harvey's kind of releasing into the universe. Is like, if he wants to leave after this, like, this is the big one. Like, if this is going to scare him off, it's going to scare him off. But Mike's like, no, Mike has made his peace with it, I think. He, like, realizes, like, they've had this whole relationship. They've built this whole relationship. And the way that Harvey found him is not as important to Mike at that point, I think. Because he's now moved on. And he's, like, he's compartmentalized.
He kind of makes a decision not to be mad about it.
Yeah.
Because he's, like, at this point, it's a bit of a sunk cost.
Yeah.
And he's, like, the other thing that's infuriating about it in general is not the information itself, but that Harvey has been holding on to this information until this moment when he is about to agree to a real relationship. And he's like, you are dropping a bomb intentionally because you cannot handle the idea of commitment.
Yeah.
You are using this to make me run away, and I'm not going to do that because I know that's what you're doing. And it's bullshit that you're doing it to me in this moment. Like, because if you actually wanted me to know this information, I would have known it before. This is actually about driving me away now, and that's fucked up.
Yeah.
They don't fully resolve that. But I think that is an important distinction of the choice that Mike is making.
Yeah.
Because it's not necessarily that he's like, this is kosher. It's more like, I know what you're doing right now.
Yeah.
And that is more of a problem with me than the information that you're giving me, or at least that's how I read it.
Yeah, and I think part of it is also that yes, you're right, he has that decision making part, but there's also like a line where it mentions that Harvey might be doing it unknowingly, like Harvey's doing it with good intentions, but with the like subconscious thought of like, oh, maybe this will make him run away.
Well, Mike points out rightfully that Harvey is deeply emotionally stunted, and does not understand how to have feelings.
Yes.
Like, he doesn't get it.
That is very canon.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
very, very canon.
Mike's like, I know you're not, he was like, you might not be doing this intentionally, but this is what you're doing. And I'm not here for it. Like, I will not abide it.
Yeah.
We're signing that goddamn contract.
And so they sign the contract and have it happily ever after.
Yep.
The end.
The end.
I loved this fic. If it wasn't obvious, I thought it was so good. Wow, I remember really loving the first Suits fic we read. I thought it was incredible, and I think I'm just really I love this relationship dynamic. I think it's great. I keep sending them.
Aaron's face.
I know. Here's what I appreciated, though. I kind of wish I'd read this one first and then read the ones that we read otherwise, because this has a great explanation of like the BDSM like kink community type things. Like the subspace is not mentioned, subdrop is not mentioned in any of the other fics, and I was like, oh, that's a really interesting like thing that I haven't thought of or haven't read enough about. So I thought it did really well with meshing the kink with the sex, and at a certain point I almost felt like the sex wasn't as important as the kink itself, which I thought was very well done. I don't want to say it was a quick read, but it did read fast.
It did read fast.
Yeah, like I was able to breeze through it, and I was like halfway done before I realized I was like, oh, great. I will say, and I think this is telling, I did not enjoy the revelation at the end. No. So much so that in my head it didn't happen. Because it felt like it came out of nowhere. Yeah. Like, it was like the author was like, oh, let me answer this burning question that none of you have asked. Like, we have all just bought the premise like, oh yeah, Harvey wanted a sub. Great. Yeah, and then he got Mike. Super. But then like they dropped this like Harvey specifically chose Mike because he saw a video of him crying while being stepped on, and I was like, could have done without that. I understand why, like, and to what you spoke to, I understand that it was like one last test and one last all of this stuff to really bind the relationship to what it is. I didn't think it was necessary, and I thought we could have ended it earlier. I thought we did not need that last chapter, but everything else I was enamored with. I thought it was really good.
I would go so far as to say that revelation actually soured most of the fic for me.
That doesn't surprise me.
I had a very hard time with it because I was like, oh, the whole premise of this relationship has shifted in my brain, and now like I already was pretty squicked, frankly,
Fair.
by a lot of it, the like relationship dynamic, and then that happened and I was like, you need to get out of there.
That is so
you need to end it. You need to go.
That is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Not the ending. I think I can understand how that would alter your, like, I think if I reread this I would wonder, so I'm interested to hear your thoughts, like in rereading it I wonder how it would affect my coloring of the rest of it, but it didn't ultimately impact the rest, like my enjoyment of the whole. I just repress it.
You decide to put it in a box on a shelf.
On the shelf, yeah. It didn't happen in my head. It ended earlier.
It's so funny because it happens literally every time I reread this. I think that conversation happens earlier. Like it's a midpoint conversation, or it should be. Or in my memory, I always think that it happens as they're talking over the second contract.
Yep.
Like when Mike is like, "This is what I want." Mike even says in his head that he's basically offering a marriage contract.
Yeah.
And in my brain, every time I'm like, and I'm rereading and I get to that section, I was like, wait, where's the conversation about the whole backstory with Lewis? And then I'm like, wait, where is it? Did I miss it? What happened? And then it gets to that chapter. I was like, oh yeah, it's at the end. That's always been a little, I agree. And that's like, if you wanted to do this, it should have been a little bit earlier, or just not at all.
Or even should have played a bigger role. I think I agreed with like Aaron saying, I think it just drops out of nowhere and is not really dealt with. It's not really handled much more than like to serve the growing relationship or the characterization, but it has a ton of implications for the rest of the fic. And like if there had been more of that, as it is, I think the entire conflict of the fic was Harvey's inability to feel and Scotty. Those were the two big like things that were hanging over that relationship, and then at the end I was like, oh, also this. So that is a really unfortunate aspect to this fic. I really wish that hadn't been at the end, but it is, so we reckon with it.
Unlike them.
Yeah, true. But otherwise I really, really loved it, and more so than any of the other fics that we submitted. This one was the one that inspired me to want to learn more and to like possibly delve into that community and like
that was me.
Testing. Yeah,
that was me in 2012 reading this fic. And the other thing I wanted to bring up with the background for me personally and this fic is this was being written and published at the exact same time that 50 Shades of Grey was becoming a cultural phenomenon.
Fascinating.
Yes. So
that explains some things.
What does that mean?
It connects some dots in my brain about the theming. Okay, never mind. It's not that it explains it. I understand why I'm uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, so she doesn't actually read 50 Shades of Grey.
No.
She's never read it.
But the same things that I dislike about 50 Shades of Grey show up in this, too.
Oh, 50 Shades of Grey is garbage.
Well, it is.
I was gonna say it's also so different.
Yeah.
It's also just, it's not BDSM.
As someone who has read 50 Shades of Grey and this fic, I can tell you.
I guess I should say the thing that I'm grappling with is I never enjoy or get into real power play relationships.
I was gonna say.
I absolutely get swicked by it. And that level, like, as soon as he was like, you can't smoke pot, I was out. Which weirdly enough was like, because it was such a sense of like bodily control that I was like, nope.
That's interesting because I think Mike thinks about it himself too, because the law firm has the same exact rule, is that you will be drug tested. And so Mike like rationalizes it and it says like, that's fine. Like plenty of other jobs do that. And it's some will have it scheduled and some will have you randomly tested. So you can't always like schedule your pot smoking or your drug taking around your P-cup test.
Yeah, I think it was because it was outside of the context of like a 9-to-5 office job. I was like,
he had benefits, Aaron. He had a salary.
Like, he's an escort.
Rude.
Like, well,
he's a hooker. He says himself.
I was like, this is not an office gig. Like, and the extent that Harvey wanted control over his life made me uncomfortable.
Yeah, but
and it's because it's coming from a perspective of like, I would never want that.
Yeah.
And I can divorce that from the quality of the fic.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's just that hovered over my reading of the fic the whole time, where I was like, you should get out of there. You should get out of there.
Yeah.
I was like, it's not like I was like, that is not a balanced relationship. And some people, if that works and that's fine, it would not work for me.
Yeah. That doesn't
it would work for me. So if anyone, any rich lawyer out there would like a professional sub who runs a podcast on this side, please reach out to the ficlist@gmail.
An amateur sub who's willing to learn.
Enthusiastic.
Yes. Is like, please teach me.
Please.
But also, like, we don't want those weirdos that will take advantage of Alan.
Yeah, if you've seen any video of me crying and that's what's making you reach out, don't do it.
Erin and I will screen them for you. She will look out for your labor rights.
For a solid 15% cut.
Great.
And I will just make sure that they're not abusive fucking assholes.
Thank you.
Yeah, no. It's so funny to me how different. You two are on the same page. I'm in a different book.
Yeah. I'm on a different shelf.
Yeah.
We're in a different section.
We're different genres. Because, that part of it. And the, like, when, even later, and the reason I was like, oh, I keep coming up against this is, like, when they renegotiate the terms of the contract, he's like, you can't go to the club anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, he has friends at the club. It is his business whether or not he goes to this club. You do not get to control that. And I had this moment of, like, you have to separate this because that is what this relationship is.
Yeah.
And these are two consensual, like, healthy, sane adults making a decision. It is a very different decision from what you would make.
Yeah. I think, and that's fair. Those things can exist simultaneously.
Yep. But I struggled to get there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then that last bit, I was like, I'm out.
Yep.
That was rough. Yeah.
Sorry. Like, if you're already on shaky ground going into that last revelation, I was like, run.
Yeah.
Get out of the house. Run. You will
sunken cost, Aaron. Sunk cost.
Yeah, you will find someone else.
No, the sunk cost.
Who can feed you biscuits? It'll be okay.
From his penthouse in New York? I think not.
With the glass private elevator.
Oh my god, absolutely not.
He's gonna make plenty of money on
his own. He's paying for my college tuition, Aaron.
It'll be
fine. Grammy's healthcare.
When did this become self-insert? When did this become reader?
He has how many hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank now? He'll be fine.
He has $150,000. You know that doesn't. He can afford a year of care for Graham.
Maybe.
But
he's also going to go be a hotshot lawyer himself.
Who's going to pay for his schooling? He can't pay for his schooling with $150,000.
I was like, God, thank you, Alan. I love you.
I'm positive it would work out.
Oh my God.
Run screaming in the other direction.
What was I thinking? Oh yeah, I wanted to continue the 50 Shades stuff. So like, while the rest of the country was like reading this fucking terrible book series, thinking that it's like legit BDSM and stuff like that, I at the same time was reading this fic where the author, even though she doesn't partake in that scene, she did her research, she watched videos, she looked up the terminology and tried her best to get it right despite not being part of that. Whereas fucking E.L. James wrote an abusive rapist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was another thing that like stuck with me, is like seeing the rest of the world think that this is what BDSM is. And I'm like, I'm reading this fan fiction that is being written for free, and in her own free time, she did the work. It's not that hard, you guys.
Yeah,
Google is free.
It is kind of tragic that sometimes the things that are not, like, good, like, that paint things in a bad light, are the ones that get popular.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just having those two, like, if things happening at the same time was just, like, it also just made me get even more interested in BDSM, because, like, I really like this fic. Fuck 50 Shades. I want to learn more, and I want to learn more about the realities of this community and the scene. And that's when I started to learn more stuff and read more kinks and fetishes and learn more about the things that I like.
I love that for you. I think
Thank you.
That's great. I think that whichever of the fics that we've talked about today, like, brings up an interest in you listeners, like, I think that it's a job well done already. Like,
yes.
to explore, to open your mind up to different, like, things that are out there, things that you might enjoy,
Yeah.
or not, or find things that absolutely squick you, and that's
Yeah.
cool too. I think we should now rate it. Erin, would you like to start?
Absolutely not. You need to go first.
Well, my rating's a 4.6. Really enjoyed it. Had a great time. The ending was just really the hardest thing to come to terms with. But other than that, I thought it was very well done.
Can I guess what yours is going to be, Erin?
You can.
I'm going to guess a 1.
Oh, God, no.
I was,
No,
thinking
no,
2.8 on Erin's.
No. I'm not that mean. I'm mean. I'm not that mean. I was going to go 3.5.
Oh, that's
Wow,
way nicer than you.
The higher I was going was like 2 or 2.5.
I thought 2.8.
At least 2 of those points are Caitlin is my friend points. But
you can be honest.
No,
like, I am not offended.
No,
I know this
so
is not your shit.
I would say a 3.5 because so many of my criticisms are personal issues
Fair.
with the things that these characters enjoy, which is not, it's not writing, it's not anything to do with, like, any of the points of the fic. Like, it's not the fic's fault that it squicked me. You know what I mean?
True. It's
so,
not for you, and that's
right,
okay.
and that's totally fine. I took issue with the revelation at the end, which was the biggest drop for me in terms of, like, the points. Or, like, you know, the rating, where I was like, this is an unresolved issue in an otherwise resolved fic. Yeah. And that is frustrating.
Yeah.
Yes, that's fair. And I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
It is really well written. It is clearly well researched. All the author's notes were really interesting because the author was like, I have researched this, but if you have lived experience with this, call me out, which I thought was huge.
Yep.
And that is sort of an ancillary part of it, but, like, the author note is part of the fanfic culture. So, like, I thought it was really cool that she, like, called that out. And, like, it was otherwise, like, a smooth read. It was a fast read. It was a good time.
Nice.
Yay!
I just, really struggled with that ending.
So I think that averages us out to around a 4.
Just about, yeah.
I feel good about that. Yay! Awesome. I'm very pleased. I'm glad we got to talk about this.
Yeah, thanks for bringing it. It was
my baby, one of my
it's a
favorite
great
fics
time.
of all time.
Caitlin, do you want to tell the listeners at home where they can find us?
No, because I don't remember. Other than Twitter and Tumblr.
Good call.
That I run.
Yes.
Erin runs the Twitter. I run the Tumblr.
And I run from my problems.
Beautiful.
Well done. Goodbye, everybody.
See you next time.
That's the
See ya.
end. No, just kidding. We have to really tell people where they can find us.
I've already stopped. No, just kidding.
Okay.
Go ahead, Erin.
So we are on Apple. We are on Spotify. We are on apparently Audible, which is hilarious.
Yep.
We just discovered this today. We are on Podbean. We're on Podchaser. We are just, like, out in the ether. SoundCloud. So go leave a review. Go leave us, like, a rating on any your, like, platform of choice because it's good for us. Awesome. We're on Ko-Fi. If you want to send us, like, $3, we need to go buy AwesomeCon merch to hand out. So and we need to re-up our SoundCloud payment. So if you feel like offsetting some of those costs, truly the only thing that we will spend that money on is offsetting the cost of these podcasts. And it does cost a little bit of money to, like, host this stuff. So anything you feel like donating is appreciated. We are on the Twitter, which I run. We are on the Tumblr, which Caitlin runs. The Tumblr's better. Go follow us on Tumblr. And you can read our entry on Fanlore. Guys, we Googled it. We Googled fic list on an incognito browser to see what would happen. And then I went, are we on Fanlore? And I opened a link and we were on fucking Fanlore! And I screamed for 18,000 years. And it is now, it's incredible. Whoever did that for us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I screamed for about 30 years in my heart.
She's still screaming to
I'm
this
still-
day.
Some say she's screaming to
I'm
this
a
day.
banshee about it. It was incredible. So we're on Fanlore. I think that's everything.
Yep.
We are either at AwesomeCon or we just were at AwesomeCon. One of the two. So that was cool. or that will be awesome. Caitlin, thank you for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks so much. This was so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for sharing and encouraging us to share all of our personal information about BDSM for the
I can't wait to
internet.
update everyone in a
You're
few months.
welcome.
It's going to be very fun. I need to remember to tell certain people in my life not to listen to this episode. And it's been a grand old time, everybody. Make sure you do your research before you get into anything new. Okay?
Okay.
Sounds good to me.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.